Good evening and welcome to the Monday, January 9 Muscatine School District Board of Education meeting. Madam Secretary, can you please take roll and help us determine the quorum, please?
Sure. Director Connard?
Here.
Cooney?
Present.
DeBeat?
Here.
LaRue?
Here.
Morgan?
Here.
Phillips?
Here.
And Shore. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Our next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight, Mary Kessner's 4-year-old preschool students from Muskie Learning Center will lead us into the pledge. Please stand. Thank you for leading us. Thank you, Miss Mary Kessner's 4-year-old preschool students. As we move forward, I would like to welcome our visitors and media representation on behalf of the board. And with that, we move into the public hearing. With the public hearing on the proposed plans, specifications, proposed form of contracts, and the estimated cost of said improvements for the Muscatine High School Wrestling Room project. Can we have a motion to open the public hearing, please?
I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, can we have a roll call, please?
President DeBeat? Director Connard?
Okay.
Director Cooney?
Here.
LaRue?
Here.
Morgan?
Aye.
Phillips?
Here.
And Shore is out.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any board member have any question? Also, did we receive any oral or written comments? None? Okay. Well, moving forward, if we don't have any, can we have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Connard?
Aye.
Cooney?
Here.
DeBeat?
Aye.
LaRue?
Aye.
Morgan?
Aye.
Phillips?
Here.
And Shore is not here, absent.
Oh,
Sorry.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the student board representative updates. Obviously, we don't have any student tonight with us. It's a final week, so we would like to wish all our students and send them best wishes, and hopefully all of them will end up doing very well in their finals. So moving forward with that, we have Citizen Speaks is our next item. If anyone in the audience wants to address the board, please step to the podium, state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Per Iowa code, we cannot respond or engage in any discussion. Anybody would like to address the board? Okay, thank you. We move into board targets, goals, report. Item A, students will graduate prepared for post-secondary options. Item B, Muscatine schools will utilize resources effectively and equitably. And item C, students will learn in a positive and supportive environment. We go back to item B, and under item B, which is Muscatine schools will utilize resources effectively and equitably, we have the facilities update, and we have Ryan and the Russell construction, please.
All right, thank you guys very much. Before I turn it over to these guys, I just want to give everybody an update on our centralized kitchen project, proceeding on schedule. The foundation is completely in, including our loading dock aspect. They tied in the sewer line to the city system yesterday, poured concrete today, so then Hauser Street should be back open by the end of the week. Our underground or under slab plumbing is currently being done inside the building, and then underground in slab electric will be done by the end, or starting at the end of the week. When I talked to the site supervisor today, they feel that they're in a pretty good spot. They're trying to move the metal work up, so they're going to try to bring him in sooner to start with the red iron as far as that goes. And that's it for that, unless you guys have questions on that. All right, perfect, even better. So I'm going to introduce a few people here. So from Leggett Architects, I have Jeff Sandberg in the back. I have Rachel Foster here. And then from Russell Construction, I have Lee Marbach here and Aaron Marsh in the back. So I'm going to turn this over to those guys. And if you have any questions, please feel free, and I'll ignore them and let them answer them.
What's new?
Hello, I'm Rachel Foster with Leggett Architects, like you said. So I'm going to be presenting the overview of the schematic designs for these 5 school projects. We've already been collaborating with the schools themselves and the administrative teams on what improvements they would like and how we can work together on these. So we're just going to give an overview of how those conversations have gone and where they've led us. So like I said, I'll go through the design part, and then Lee will talk through timelines and budgets. So for Jefferson Elementary School, this is phase 1 of a 2-phase project. So the second phase that involves Central Middle School, we're not talking about today. We're just talking about the Jefferson part. So this is 8 classrooms. It's a 5th and 6th grade wing. They'll have their own entrance, and we're keeping this addition off west of the playground here, up against Central, and it'll have that connection to access both the gym and auditorium spaces. The addition also includes some flexible office spaces for additional student support, and we talked through that those rooms are going to be flexible for AEA, Braille, kind of can evolve as the student population evolves. Go on to the rendering here. This shows Jefferson Elementary School and Central Middle School in the back, and the addition, L-shaped addition here in the front, really taking cues from Jefferson Elementary School and keeping that context in play with our design here. For Grant Elementary School and the next 2 after this, these are all controlled entrance additions. So all 3 of these schools will have the same progression of a storefront glass vestibule that's locked and has access to the reception desk beyond. And so whoever's in the reception area will have to buzz any guest in through locked doors, 2 sets of locked doors before gaining access to them, before they could get access to the rest of the school. So there's a lot more visibility, and there's a lot more controlled steps to get to the rest of the school. So for Grant here, we have approximately 2,000 square feet of administrative suite along with this vestibule. We're working with also having the nurse's office up front with access to both the entrance and the administrative desk for easy drop off and pickup for students and parents. Another thing that was talked about with this school, Principal Bennett mentioned that parking is a key issue here, and so even though the addition will be taking away some spots, we wanted to maintain as many as we could, so we're adding some parking to the west lot and connecting to have a in and out loop, and then we'll have a net gain of 3 spaces here. So here, the rendering for Grant.
If I can just interrupt
Yeah.
for a second too, as we go back to that space, one of the things that moving this secured entrance allows is it also provides a band and orchestra room. And I was in the building last week, and there was a orchestra lesson happening in the gym. Principal Bennett let me know that that's the 3rd space she had been working in that day. So and then as you go down the hall, and there's instruments, down that secondary wing there, to have one space where they can store instruments that she can consistently teach out of will be a big deal. So not just the secured entrance, but the functionality it provides to all these buildings, I think is important. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah, so by bringing out some of the spaces in purple off to the right that used to be for the principal and nurse and a workroom space, now those are getting repurposed for needs that the school has, like additional band orchestra space with storage, and a updated teacher's lounge as well for Grant.
It may seem kind of nitpicky. With all the glass, is it bulletproof? What kind of glass are we talking in that area? Because if we're trying to make it more secure, then if you're going to have a hostile intruder, more than likely, they're going to be able to get through glass unless we may take the plan for that.
Sure. I don't know if we've considered the level of glazing here.
Jeff, can I ask you, please, if you come to the mic so that the audience can hear what you are saying, please? Thank you.
That's what I assumed was a security film.
So typically there's a security film, bulletproof glass, it's sort of different levels of expenses,
Right.
but there's a baseline sort of school safety film that would be there. A lot of times they're trying to make sure that the visibility, so you have the
Right.
time to react. Hey, I identified this person as a potential threat, let me get to it. By the time they get through those barriers, usually you have time to react.
And is that level of visibility, is it one way?
No,
So
It'll
all
be
right,
two
it'll
ways.
it'll be the same both ways?
correct. That's typical.
Okay.
But we can change that if it's a concern.
I've just been in buildings where you can see out a lot better than they can see in. It's more reflective, more mirrored from their side of it.
Absolutely, we can do that if that's a concern.
Would that reflect some from that security assessment that we had? Is there any questions with that?
Well, they're going to have some different pieces because when they were assessing Grant, it doesn't have a secured entrance. So we're going to address some of those issues through this that they would have identified.
So moving into the rendering here, like you're talking about with the glazing up front, the addition is also working to draw everyone's eye towards this as the main entrance. A lot of these buildings, it's hard to tell which of the exterior doors around the building are the main entrance for reception. So some more signage and a raised roof line here will help clarify that. And then there's also space out front for students to wait separate from the parking lot, and can add in some concrete bollards for that additional safety. Moving into Madison Elementary School, this will have the same level of controlled entrance sequencing from the vestibule into the admin office, and then access into the principal's office and nurse from there. There's, again, a common line of Principal Zillig here mentioned that this student safety between the parking lot and the front entrance doors is key, with their current parking lot going straight up to their front doors. So we, again, we're setting back the parking from the front and also pulled the entrance doors off to the side under the canopy you'll see in the next image here to help break up that sequence that they have now where the parking lot is right up to the front doors. So setting back both having that sidewalk and setting back the doors onto the side. We're pulling, in this design, we're pulling from the existing elements of the school with some of these brick piers and wing walls and the dark brown fascia panels, as well as putting in some new colors and signage to draw interest to this part of the building compared to the other, sets of doors and entrances throughout the building.
Can I ask a question about that? So on Grant, we were doing the boulders for the safety and things. What is the cost difference between those and then a covered structure like this?
So we would probably have the boulders then in front of this covered structure. This is more part of their design and them wanting to have more covered outdoor space to work with. So, we could look into having more covered space at Grant if that's the case too. But they're more
Every
different
school would
design
probably like covered
selections.
space.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just curious on if that would be an area for cost savings if we could still guarantee the safety there. I mean, I understand wanting it, and I would also want it if I was going to be standing out there waiting, but looking at what our other schools provide and that too, maybe some similarities there in what we provide would be an option, if you could.
Yeah. That makes sense. Right. Moving on to Susan Clark Junior High School. Again, this controlled entrance will work with the vestibule into the front office and adding a lot of glazing at the entrance for that visibility factor coming up to the front door, which is a big improvement to a lot of these. At the current Susan Clark entrance, there's a window, but then to check people in, but then once you're cleared into the vestibule, you're open to all of the corridor, and so this really keeps people going directly into this administrative suite, and that helps direct traffic to, like if they're just going to the conference room or a principal's office, they don't need to just be walking down the entire student corridor. And for this addition, we're only extending the building about 18 feet to the east, but it allows us to extend and get 2 more counseling offices into the counseling suite, and then have more of a core area of the administrative offices that are currently, spread out along this whole corridor. Another element that was requested in our school meetings was to increase the size of the restrooms for the students. So that's what's shown on the left there. We're getting a lot more fixtures in for students to use near the cafeteria space and repurposing the old bathrooms into more offices. And so moving some of those spaces that are getting repurposed out into the addition allows for some of the bigger bathrooms and a more centralized nurse and admin area up front.
Is that all bathrooms, or is that just the 2 that are down on the bottom? Is that just the 2 that are part of the original building?
Yeah, what's
Right inside the
purple at
door?
the bottom, those 2 spaces are the current bathrooms that only have 3 fixtures, so those are getting turned into offices, and now up to the left in the purple is all the new bathrooms.
Up left is new bathrooms.
So I was in the conversations with Susan Clark, one of the things that was, every building's a little bit unique in what they need in the space, both in new space, but in kind of re-looking at the space that's there, is they don't have enough restroom space for their kids.
Right.
And those 2 little small bathrooms were not enough to cover that part of the building, especially since it's by the lunchroom right there. And so it's, we reconfigured that space. So they're taking out some office space to put those 2 restrooms in there, those larger restrooms. And so those 2 smaller ones, which are on the bottom there, just become kind of replacement office space.
And then here in the rendering, again, we're pulling up some bigger signage and have covered area for some students to wait, but we're also going to be developing the exterior plaza to create a lot of places for students to wait and gather before and after school, and really engage that entire entrance area from the drop-off and street. I think, those are the main things. Moving on to the high school wrestling edition. This space is adding on 2 full-size mats here, in addition to the existing space. This project's on a little bit of a later timeline than the other ones. It just got added in a little later, so it's still under development, but I think we're pretty solid on the scope now and how big this is going to be. So we've got space for those 2 mats, like I said, and then there's also some pre-function space between the existing gym and then the new addition that connects the fitness room to the north and the gym. So it's all one big core space instead of just onto part of it. And the plan for the exterior facade is to continue the metal panels similar to the science edition that's nearby, just on the other side of the other wrestling room. Right.
So the open space, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
So the open space behind the two mats, that's an extension of,
The gym
It'd be like an open corridor. Right now, you walk out those gym doors.
Right, you're in the grass.
outside. Yeah, so this is,
Filling that all in. That's also in conversation with our PE teachers at the high school. We looked at a couple of different options, and this one was the preferred option.
and what's going to be in this area? Is that just an open space?
It'll be open space. Yeah.
Under roof, though?
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
newly enclosed. The edge of the gym is the edge of the building right now, so we're expanding that all the way out to the edge here. So yeah, newly enclosed space that could be
So the
staging or pre-function to the gym.
quiet, Ryan. So the trainer's office. Questions, because I know it's coming. No, you don't. So the trainer's office is just to the, it's northeast, right?
Yes. So you still have your training office right here. See where the cursor is?
The training office that's been insufficient for the last 30 years, that's about the size of a pin, and we have all this space right here. Is there any possibility that we could expand and actually have a training office that suits our, we have highly qualified people, and we've done a really good job of trying to take care of our kids, but they do it in inadequate space. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I understand what you're saying, but part of our issue is we still need to egress out of the gym. And that
Yep.
hallway is going to serve as our egress. So if you break it up, then we're going to have egress issues.
We also have a training room at the Van Heck Center that is utilized as well.
I understand that, but you have to go outside to get to the Van Heck Center.
We just have a number.
But if we have that space, even if you did it, you guys can figure it out. I just think that if there's any possibility of trying to expand the training room, and I think that any one of our coaches would tell you, and all of our kids that have been injured would tell you, that if we could improve that space, that training space, it would be to the benefit of all of our kids.
So I'm up with the
Before you go
numbers
to,
next.
pardon me, before you go to that, I do have go back for a question on the Jefferson area. I apologize. Apparently, I'm not very good at reading maps, and especially since part of the maps don't actually give reference to some of the areas. But if I've got it correctly, the picture with the Jefferson there, and when this was stapled together, it appears that it's upside down compared to the picture.
Yeah,
Would that
so
be correct?
If you see my mouse on the screen here, that picture's taken from up here, looking down to the south. Yeah. So you're,
Okay, where is the auditorium? I don't see anything marking where the auditorium would be
the gym
at
is
comparable.
here, and the auditorium for Central is here in the background.
Pardon me
So
again.
so Central and Jefferson are behind the addition that you see in the rendering from up north.
Okay. I don't see it, but okay.
Auditorium is right here, Karen.
Well,
Your
that's-
paper around.
Bottom left.
There you go.
Okay, one marked. Okay,
Is now.
thank you. That's my question.
All right, so our team went together based on the updated documents from Leggett, and we pulled costs together. So what we've broken these down into is kind of the controlled entrance project. So that's all three controlled entrances mixed together. So we have different sections of this estimate. So we have the direct cost, which would be the cost from the contractors as they bid. Then we have the general conditions and design fees and management fees. And then we have a section for contingency also in there. And just a reminder, for contingency, as a recommendation of a pot of money the district carries for each project to progress through construction. We also have a design contingency, and that's only you'll see that as design progresses. By the time we go out to bid, that number's gonna go down to zero. And that's really to fill in for those unknowns that we have a hard time, if there's a code requirement that pops up or something that has to happen, but we don't have it in the documents today. So that's a function of how detailed the drawings are when we estimate. And then the last section of the budget is soft cost. FF&E is fixtures, furniture, and equipment, if you're not familiar with that nomenclature. So that'd be desks, chairs, tables, anything the district would have to purchase that would go in the space that's not physically part of the space. And then we have a material testing allowance, which is part of your quality control. So for a grant, and I have a second page after this, we can look at comparisons from our initial conceptual drawings to now. But for Grant, Madison, and Clark secured entrances, the total project total is about $7 million with all fees and contingencies and soft costs included. Jefferson, we're at 7.9, and then the wrestling room, we're at 2.3-ish. So on the second page, I've shown just the hard costs because that was the easiest thing we could pull side by side because we didn't really have the soft costs established at the conceptual estimate. But what you really see is Jefferson went up by about $1 million. And the big part of that is as through development through the city, they identified we have to have a storm shelter as part of that addition. So one of the classroom spaces in that addition is a storm shelter. And right now is being estimated as ICC 500, thank you. So talk with Ryan that went through this the last time. That's the high end. Through negotiations with the city, we'll understand exactly what requirements those are and we'll be able to dial that in. But we are covered based on what we believe the storm shelter cost there. Grant, Madison, and Clark, the team did a really good job of reducing scope and square footage and bringing those numbers down. So that's where you see the savings there. Some are more and some are less depending as we've done investigations of where our site sewer is and where we're how much flooring we have to bust up in the existing space to tie in those new bathrooms, those type of things that have been developed. And then the wrestling room, the big thing you can see there is we changed the scope of that one to actually make it a little bit bigger and build that pre-function space and fit the site better than just putting on a small addition to the north as we had it before. So. Is there any questions on either of those two slides or anything I missed, Clint, that you want me to
No, I would just add in that we haven't included softball, baseball. There's just been a number of changes on that. And with the holidays, we're still working through numbers and getting that. So that'll come back at a later meeting.
Yeah, and kind of the timeline we're going on right now, the first one that will come out to bid is our secure entrance project, and we're targeting early April for out to bid. Usually about 3 weeks to bid, and then we'll bring that to the board meeting depending on the time, whether it be regular scheduled or how we work through that. So I would expect to see that in around the May board meeting for approval. Wrestling, we're scheduling out to bid by mid-April if everything tracks with the design, and then Jefferson will be late May out to bid. So, and then as a reminder, those projects, the secure entrances are about a 6-month project, so we're targeting December for finishing those projects. For substantial completion. Wrestling room, we're pushing that one along to get done before wrestling, so that'd be around October. And then Jefferson, we're looking to be summer of 24, so that'd come online for that following school year of 24.
Will there be any, with that timeline of finishing those opening, or the entrances, the secure entrances, how much disruption will happen to the school day itself?
Yeah, great question. So we planned all these projects starting, with the exception of wrestling. I think that one will start before school's out just because of the accelerated timeline. The other ones will all start after school's out this year. And so the plan will be to have a temporary solution for how to enter and exit those schools. Each school kind of has its own uniqueness of how much we're disrupting that space. And logistics there. So some of that's going to be yet to be determined, but we'll have a hard barrier and separating construction from the academic space during that construction wing, but there will definitely be some disruption for traffic flow for students and staff and how they get in and out of the space for that first half of the year.
That's one of the things we've talked with the buildings about, so they're preparing for it. How will students enter the building, where will drop off? I mean, all of that will have to be determined, so they know they're kind of planning on that now. They can communicate that both to staff and to parents, so to kind of start the year next year under that model, and then as we probably get through winter break next year, when they come back, it would be through that, the goal.
The
would be
newer.
that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for the information, and we look forward to continue to see more information and more work. Thank you.
Thank you. I felt like I was in a...
Okay, going back to board targets, goals report, item C, students will learn in a positive and supportive environment. And the first item on this, or under this, is the German-American Partnership Program with Mr. Charles Netzers, please.
Guten Abend, mein Name ist Herr Netzer. I am standing before you today with a 18-month timeline that I would like to propose to you. There was once a German teacher at the Muscatine High School named Milena Reed, who has not been with us for a while. She had a relationship with a school in Baden-Württemberg in the southwest of Germany. It is my objective in this proposal to regenerate that exchange relationship. I've been in touch with Milena for the last 4 months. This is largely her baby, but I am shifting its focus in 2 ways. First, Milena shifted the focus from where it had previously been. We are going to operate with a different school. That school is the Georg Goldstein Schule. If you look at the Y, it's a vocational school, which is intriguing for Muscatine for a couple of reasons. This school focuses on apprenticeships, community apprenticeships, and I see interesting parallels between them and us in that regard. The previous school was what's known as a gymnasium. That's a state-funded college preparatory school. Moreover, though, we have extant relationships with the teachers there. But I'm also shifting the way we're going to run this exchange. I would like to use a program called GAP, the German-American Partnership Program. There are a couple of reasons why. First and foremost, let me get this on the table. I have a personal bias. I used to work for the Goethe Institute, which is the German government's German language teaching organization abroad. GAP is housed within that program. That is how I came to know GAP. Second, I still have very close friends working for that organization, so those are my personal biases. Those aside, I still feel it's the right choice regardless of them. Number one, unlike most foreign exchange programs, this is not for profit. Number two, my first and greatest priority with any foreign exchange would be student safety. This program has existed for more than 50 years. It is run by the German Foreign Office, and it is run by the State Department. But the second thing that I want to bring your attention to is student access. This program, because it is funded through grants, because it is a not-for-profit program, bears costs that are a fraction of what they would otherwise be. And I'll bring your attention to that later. This program would be 14 days in total. We would spend 10 of them in homestays. That is part of what brings the program costs down. We are not housing students in hostels or hotels. Second, the students would spend 5 days in the school partnership itself. They would not be doing tourism, they would actually be in the school. We have a capacity of about 20 students, and the overhead is kept low because of group scholarship grants, individual scholarship grants that are available, a partnership with Iceland Air, and those three factors together can bring it down to as low as about $1,200 per student participant for the 14 days, which is about the price of an airline ticket. Coming at it from an organizational perspective, also, there are a couple of affordances we get with GAP. Number one, I, as a new onboarding teacher, and my counterpart on the other side, would get training from the GAP program in this participation. There would be 3 workshops available for us both to participate in. There would be an intercultural communication module. This is where we learn how to teach our students how to communicate interculturally within the GAP framework, in addition to other available opportunities for us. There's an at-a-glance timeline at the bottom if you want to observe it. We're looking at sending our kids, if this proposal is accepted, in June of 2024 after the school year has concluded. GAP has one more affordance that I want to draw your attention to. This would not simply be an exchange program. This would significantly influence the curriculum of German teaching at Muscatine High School. GAP, since the pandemic, developed a virtual exchange component. That is not voluntary. For participation in the program, students and teachers must participate in this virtual component. That includes an asynchronous communication platform. For those of you not attuned to that jargon, asynchronous means that we're not working to schedule meetings with the time zone difference. We're going to record videos for each other. And we're going to have one-to-one student interaction on that platform. The idea is for the students to build over 18 months a one-to-one relationship with their homestay partner on the other end. Within that, we also have built-in assessments and learning activities. This would be project-based learning for the most part, both metacognitive reflective pieces and straight-up language assessment tools. I should also note that this brings students into a larger alumni network after they have graduated the program. Here's our timeline. Of note, if we were to pursue this, we would be looking at their arrival in November of this year. So for that, we have about a 10-month runway. Board, if you look at the back of your sheet, I have a list of the individual preparation methods that we're going to use that I've just gone over. There are some that I haven't specifically spoken to, including permission slips and things of that nature, as well as further resources. I have additional copies if anyone in the audience would like to see it. That's the short of it. Are there any questions that I can answer?
The same curriculum that you mentioned, even if a student were not to be part of this program, but they were to take your class, are they still receiving the same instruction then, or is...
That's exactly right. I cannot ethically show any favoritism in this regard. Whether or not they participate in the program, they would be engaging in the same curriculum. It would be identical.
Okay. And it would be open to students outside of just the 10 to 20?
That is exactly correct. Whether or not they are selected for the in-person exchange,
Okay.
they would be able to participate in the digital exchange.
Oh, good.
If I've got you correctly, because you talk about the speaking practices and such like that, is this a requirement that these need to be students that are already in German class, or how does that work?
That is correct. This program requires a language level that is A1 or A2 according to the European Framework of Reference, which would be beginners. They only need to be in German 2 really to participate, but they must have some German under their belt in order to complete the tasks.
So to pay for this, I'm assuming that there would be some fundraising for each individual student, right? Does GAP provide how the money is managed, or is that thrown into, because I don't think that we allow it to be thrown into one fund and then drawn from that. I think that if I remember correctly, Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that anytime we have kids that are going on a trip, they have to manage their own fund, but we are somehow able to provide an assurance that they are able to pay for what they're doing. I've just talked, is all I did.
So that's a great question. The previous way of handling that was, yes, individual fundraising. Those fundraising tools include the ones you might know from athletics. They are also to include branded material, T-shirts, hats,
Right.
the like. My goal, though, would be for students who need to do the fundraising that the individual scholarships, of which we can have 5 per group,
Okay.
5, would bring those costs significantly down for students with demonstrated need.
I'm not saying that this would happen, but if, for the capacity area of it, if, say, for example, if we did not have 10, would we be able to broaden that scope, as in like L&M or any other school district somewhere around?
It is not presently
Or is
my
this specifically
anticipation that
for
we'll have
here?
difficulty meeting the 10 minimum capacity. My anticipation, based on initial student interest, is that we will have difficulty accommodating all interested parties.
So is this open just to, is there a level of, a skill level associated with who can go and who can't? Is it just German 4, just German 3? Is it all German students that can go 1, 2, 3, 4?
The amount, as you can see, the timeline in front of you allows for a long runway before students would travel. They need to indicate their interest
So it's at least a 2 year.
approximately 18 months in advance.
Okay.
So hypothetically, with that in mind, as long as the student is enrolled in a German class at the time they indicate their interest, they would not need to demonstrate any language proficiency beyond simply their enrollment in the course. We would have sufficient time to ramp them up to a level where they could be successful.
Thank you.
Do you have a guess, or maybe you just know, how many students are taking German?
Currently, there are 110, roughly, students enrolled in German.
So I don't think you can have any difficulty finding 10 students out of those.
No, the tragedy is going to be turning people down.
That is
Rather than
true.
do it a purely skill-based assessment, I think what we're going to look at is a seniority-based selection protocol, just out of fairness to the kids. And then after I've opened it to all the current seniors, I would open it to current juniors, and after I'd opened it to current juniors, I would open it to current sophomores, and so on the way down.
All right, that kind of led to my last question. And I probably should have followed along better. How often will this be occurring? Is it an annual thing? Is it a semi, or every 2 years, 4 years?
Ideally, it would be a semi-annual exchange partnership where on the off year, they would then come to us.
Gotcha.
There are requirements you mentioned that you have to partake in order to be eligible for this, right, as a school?
That is correct.
How soon do you have to start doing that for this timeline to work?
The feasibility of the timeline requires that I submit materials to them on a rolling basis as early as possible. The primary concern is the scholarships. I want this to be as accessible as possible to all students. With that in mind, those funds are limited every year and are not assigned first come, first serve, but the earlier you stand in that line, the more likely you are to have your full needs met.
I don't mean to make you uncomfortable with this question.
It's a
but
great
advice.
question.
If you were to leave the district and go somewhere else, is this agreement and partnership tied to you specifically, or is it tied to our district and another
The agreement would be
staff?
tied to the school this time. Previously, when Milena left, the agreement was tied specifically to her person. This would unhouse that agreement from her person and my person.
Thank you. I hope you're still here, but don't leave. That's
It's a
really
fair
great.
question. The way the way the GAP partner school system works is it permanently, as long as the two schools are willing, binds them together and not the individuals who administer the programs.
Thank you.
I think also, being that you mentioned, it's like, if I've got you correctly, it's almost like an every other year.
That's
in
right.
which to do. So then this could be a good selling point for the younger kids to, realize that, in another couple of years, so that will start getting them maybe when they're looking to choose which language, that they wish to be able to have, that would help them to choose German language.
That's absolutely right, Ms. Cooney. One of the things we're discussing in the language department right now is what are the motivating factors for students in upper level language courses? And traditionally that's been answered with a sort of mindless, well, it's a college requirement. And that's not strictly speaking true. And even for those who it is a college requirement, that's just an extrinsic motivator. And we want to really build intrinsic motivators into the language courses, people doing it for the love of what it brings them, not just, well, I have to do this. And the hope is, yes, through doing this, we would build these intrinsic motivators, not just in anticipation of the program, but after exiting the program to one of the implicit goals is to build a permanent bond, if all goes well, with the hosting partner on the other side, both the family and the student.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Do you think you'll have trouble finding host families when, on the off years that their students are traveling here?
It is a reciprocal exchange. They are only permitted to participate if they are willing to host.
Good to know.
Any other questions? Well, thank you. Great information, and we look forward to hear back from you once you start taking the students there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So the next item we have under item C is the literacy updates, and Joanne, it's all yours.
Thank you. I've been in Charlie's class. It's a pretty amazing class. I didn't know much of what he was saying, but I was thoroughly engaged the whole time. So, and he had coffee in there. It was great. Anyway, all right. I'm here to give an update on our literacy pilot. And this will be quick, but I just kind of want to give you just a brief opening of where we are at this point. We just had our first pilot training for our teachers the week of January 2nd. And our first pilot will start on January 17th and conclude on February 10th. Our kindergarten through 5th grade teachers at the pilot schools will be piloting Wonders first, and our 6th through 12th grade teachers will be piloting My Perspectives. Our second pilot will begin February 21st through March 24th, and the training for that pilot will occur on January 27th. Our kindergarten through 5th grade teachers in the second pilot will be working with Amplify. Our 7th and 8th grade teachers will be doing some additional materials with Springboard, and then our 6th through 9th and 12th grade teachers are piloting Into Reading. Our pilot schools, once again, are Madison, McKinley, and Franklin, Susan Clark, and the high school. And the teachers in the other schools, if they're not piloting, they're welcome to come over and watch lessons. They can meet with teachers. We'll cover their classes so that they can go. And we have about 90 teachers piloting. So overall, through this whole process, we will have close to 200 teachers who have served on either a selection committee, a recommendation committee, or piloting. So we're really excited about having that much voice for our schools. We also did open it up for a couple of weeks for parents to come in, or teachers who wanted to give feedback, and we did have some responses from that. So we did, take those responses and we'll evaluate that as well when we get our responses back from our teachers and students at the conclusion of the pilot. And then we will plan to come back to you on April 17th with a recommendation for your approval. So I just kind of wanted to let you know where we are. I did talk with Lindsay earlier. She did bring up it'd be nice to send a letter home to parents from those schools letting them know what's going on. So we will definitely get that done right away. It was a great suggestion. Do you guys have any questions regarding the pilot?
A question I have has to do with, you mentioned about so that the parents would be able to come into the classrooms then? Is there like a timeline? Because let's say you're going to want to have the teachers have been utilizing it for a bit before you would have them, or say us, or somebody coming in.
Well, the parents actually had an opportunity to come in and go through the materials at the board office.
Okay.
But, teachers from across our district, if they wanted to come over and watch lessons that teachers are teaching, they're welcome to go into other classrooms to watch lessons.
Okay. I apologize. I thought you were talking about to be able to watch them actually doing the teaching, right now, with it then. understood.
Jewel, I got Madison, McKinley, and what's the third one?
Franklin.
Franklin,
Yes.
thank you.
And the teachers, they've been excellent. We've, had different our first training, and, they've asked a lot of great questions. They put in a lot of extra work in planning for this, and then we're going to ask them to do it again a second time. So I did really want to give a shout out to the teachers. It's been, a lot of extra work for them, and, we do appreciate their voice in the process. It's very important to us, when we're selecting something, that they've had the opportunity both for, them to be exposed, but also the kids. And we also, the coaches and some of our TLC members work together to get a feedback form. We'll also be asking feedback from our students as well. So.
Is there a link? I know that we could go into the board office, and I did that. It was a lot. I couldn't look through all of it in a morning. Also, I don't know exactly what I'm looking at, so it took me probably much longer than it maybe would take experts like yourself. But is there a link or something that we could go on and learn about it more as parents are hearing from students too?
Yeah.
What's the best way to?
I don't have links for the materials, because when we get links, it's really their teacher links because we're doing the pilot, but we definitely have a lot of materials, and so if any parents are interested in coming or looking at the materials, they can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to meet with them, provide the materials for them to look through or whatever they need. Yeah, it's a lot to go through.
It is. Thank you for providing that time.
Because I know, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I noted when I was looking through it, I echo what she's saying on there. And so to be able to make sure that the parents are also able to understand what that is. But the thing that I noted was that it seemed to be a little harder in the 5th, 6th, 7th grade area. It seemed to be which one that they're able to do because of the where, like say, for example, the Wonder Stop, and when has to go then into the one that is mostly geared toward high school
Secondary,
even.
right? So most of the materials are written for K-5 and then 6-12. And so because our 6th grade teachers and students are in our elementary buildings, it can create some challenges for that, right? Because we want to make sure that 6th grade students have rigorous, we want all students to have rigorous material and material that's engaging, but we do have to look at some of our materials start in 6th grade, so that does mean at the elementary level, you could have 2 curriculums, which, at the same building.
Great, thank you.
So again, what we're looking at are resources to support our curriculum, correct? So these are just resources, they aren't the actual curriculum.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
it's-
thank you. We teach standards.
Right,
And
so,
the
so what
materials to support.
we're looking at trying to get the best tools that we can to teach what we identify as the standards that our kids need to have.
Yeah,
right?
and I think along with that, nothing out there is perfect. I
No.
mean, we know that just exactly what Mr. Morgan was referring to is that we will be able to get materials to support our standards, but there's nothing out there that's perfect, and we know that. And we may have to supplement in some areas, but we'll use, make the very best decision that we can on what we have. So.
And I really hope that our teachers keep that in mind, is that I'm assuming and I trust that they know the standards that they need to teach. And this really, I hope they have the idea that they're approaching this as like, how is this going to make my teaching easier? Mm-hmm. What resources are going to make my teaching easier? So actually, I'm hoping that it'll lessen the work that they need to do, right? They shouldn't have to go out and find other resources because it's more, this takes care of a big bulk of it right here. This is my basal, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. One of I'll just compliment the programs that were there too, is when I looked at them, not having any grading or teaching experience, I felt like I knew the standards that were being addressed with each curriculum, especially the K through 5, they did a really nice job identifying them right away, and then even recognizing the ones that were going to be assessed. And so I thought that that was really helpful. And as a parent, when it comes to grading, sometimes it can get confusing. I'm not sure what we're working on or where my kid is supposed to be. But having access at some of those goals, it would be really comforting too, and being able to
And
do
that,
that.
yes, Scott Comstock's been working a lot with the reps as well. But one of the really, I think amazing things the teachers have also felt is like, if, for example, when a student takes an assessment, the sites can go ahead and like look at every student, exactly how they did on each assessment, and then it also, or on each standard, and then it also keeps track of it over time. So for example, if you have a standard, it can say, okay, the student answered this standard correctly 10 times out of 32, or 4 times out of 4 times. So like it keeps it in real time for teachers. It also allows teachers to be able to put students in intervention groups or reteaching groups for areas that they may need extra support. But I thought the ease of the platforms was pretty easy for teachers to be able to use to help guide instruction. So it's also something that we're looking at.
Joel, oh,
No, I was just going to make more of a comment area, as in when I was also looking through, it brought me back to school, by reading through it and looking at some of the words and things that they were asking the kids to be able to understand, and how they had to get them to understand and everything. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is how I was taught on some of this, not really remembering, but then all of a sudden that came back to life. And I think of it as also, this has got to be a better way of getting there than it was when I was in school.
Right.
And so that's the way I try to look at it, as in the future has a way of catching up with us, and that we're trying to get our kids into that future area with all this.
well, a couple questions. Number one, parents, do they need to call and make an appointment before they come and look into those materials? And number two, hours, timeline, let's say, what would be, let's say, 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon? What's the intention here?
Yeah,
please?
I'm flexible. If they just email and let us know. I have Hannah Mackey is also over at the board office and doing some work with this, and so between one of us, if they email me, we can set that up for them. And I'm flexible with time. I know some parents work until 5 or whatever, and so we can be flexible with times if they're interested in looking at it.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? Thank you. Thanks for the updates. Thank you. And moving forward now, superintendent updates.
Yeah, so just really quickly, I want to update you on so later in the agenda, you'll be approving some early retirees. One of those retirees is Mr. Hoganson, our high school principal. And certainly we appreciate all the time that he has been with the district, and that's a big position to fill. And so we have posted that position as of last Friday. So I just want to kind of go through that timeline a little bit. That position will be open until the end of January. It really is it's a pretty good time to be out there looking right now. You don't want to be out there late, when maybe some of all these decisions have been done. You don't want to get out too early either. And so this is really a good time to get that process started. But it is a process, and it takes time. So we'll keep that open until the end of January. We'll have a screening process that we'll go through. We'll have a number of stakeholder groups, parents, community members, staff members, students involved in that. Some of that will be at the district office. Some of that will be on site. So we'll get candidates through that and get feedback. This Friday, I'll be in front of the high school staff, and they'll have an opportunity to generate a list of qualities and characteristics that they're looking for in the next principal. so that as we do screening, as we look at strengths and areas of concerns for each candidate, we're kind of doing that through that lens of really what are the priorities of the staff in that building. So as this process wraps up, just from a board standpoint, we'll have a recommendation to you by the March 20th board meeting. So just as it takes some time to get through that process, we have to give ourselves a little wiggle room. Sometimes, we need a final round of interviews, so just kind of building that out. It really puts us finishing that in early March and getting it to the board as a recommendation for the March 20th board meeting. Still in good time, as we've got a few months left in the school year. People know where we're at and where we're headed, but it's not too much time either. So, questions about that?
What's the screening process look like? Do you have a rough idea?
Yeah, so that will be done by myself, and I'll have 2 directors working with me so that at least 2 of us have eyes on every candidate. We'll go through, there's a screening process where we'll look at the application, there are questions, and we'll pull all of that together. Then we each, again, our ranking candidates will get through, have a conversation, we'll pull that list together. Typically, that's pulling that down to 6 to 8 candidates. And those are the candidates we would bring forward to a larger group.
So you'll go from the applications as a group, take that total down to about 6 to 8. That will be presented out. So there's just one level of
Typically,
screening
when
with
get
you
to-
guys.
Typically, when you get to those larger groups, you're down to 5 or 6 candidates. And I say 6 to 8 because, as you know, sometimes people back out.
Right.
Sometimes, there's just different things that pop up. So normally, it starts to funnel itself down, but we're the first funnel.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Clint. Moving forward, next on our agenda, the possible action. The following items are considered to be routine by the Board of Education and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the director so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence from the agenda. The items are 1. Minutes, 2. Bills and claims, 3. Employment recommendations, 4. Special education contracts, 5. Policies no minimal required by law, and 6. Interfund transfer. What are the wishes of the board?
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. So moving forward now with our agenda, that takes us to item
H.
H. Thank you, I'm trying to figure out. Okay, item H, approve administration authorities to seek SPRC modified supplemental amount for 2023-24, returning dropouts and dropout prevention at risk program in the amount of $1,119,129. What are the wishes of the board?
I make a motion to approve the administration approve that the administration authority to seek SBRC modified supplement amount for the 2023-24 returning dropout prevention at risk program in the amount of $1,119,129.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we can have a discussion, but I see Tom is standing up, most probably ready to answer any question.
Questions if you have them, but otherwise, this is just an annual approval. It's not anything new, and it obviously funds our at-risk program, or it's part of what funds our at-risk program. So I can answer any questions maybe about the budget or what was presented, but anything further would.
Roughly, Tom, how does this compare to last year? This
It's roughly the
amount?
same.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's no big,
Right.
like, oh, wow,
No.
what are we going to do kind of things.
Nope.
Okay.
And how many students are in this at-risk
Great
program?
question, because we do have to, it's
leveled.
just based on what our district deems as being what an at-risk student is. So it could be low SES student, it could be a student that, with high chronic absenteeism. And I'm kind of looking out of the corner of my eye for help, but reading scores, yes. So
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, you can have multiple levels as well, right? So we have a blanket that's bigger that might just be you meet one factor, and then it funnels up to where we have a different level where kids have multiple factors that they meet it, so they get better or they get more services, not better services, they get more services.
But I'm reading that correctly, that's
I
2,451
put, yeah,
students.
2451 is a estimate, right? So.
Okay, any more questions? Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
We have a motion, we have a second. What are the wishes of the board? So we decided on that. All those in favor of approving the administration authority to seek SBRC modified supplemental amount for 23-24, returning dropouts and dropout prevention at risk program in the amount of $1,119,129, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving forward, we move into item I, approve the earlier retirees for FY23. What are the wishes of the board?
I make a motion to approve the early retirees for fiscal year '23.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, any information?
Well, I think they met some milestones, so a thank you to all of them, and hopefully they'll all sub. But no, really, thank you. I think it's exciting and
And I was looking at the list, and out of the 19, we have 12, if I remember right, teachers around, and the rest of them are staff. So obviously, we hate to lose those people who has many years of experience, but also we'd like to wish them to also a great time to spend with the loved ones, the family, or whoever, but we would like to see them back again, perhaps as substitute teachers or somehow. So any other discussion?
Do we have an idea when we'll start to look for these positions, to fill these positions? I'm just trying to get all you guys get your steps in. I'm just going to keep asking questions.
Yes, I've already started. I've got a plan to have them posted by tomorrow. We've started going through and getting them done, but we've already been looking forward to not only getting our mid-years in, but planning for how they can take some of these positions in the fall. So we've got 7 or 8 mid-year hires that are starting last week or this week, and then hitting recruitment fairs and targeting those colleges and universities that have some of these more specialized programs.
So we have mid-year hires that we're targeting for the fall?
Well, they're mid-year hires in some of our areas that we need extra support, that we either have a long-term absence that they can fill for the rest of this year, and then we're going to have a home for them in the fall, or if we're able to get them into a home now that they will stay in, we're doing that as well.
Okay. I would be in favor, and I'm just one voice on this board, but I would be in favor if you can get people hired for the fall and let them mentor in their classrooms where they have very little stress, where they have very little responsibility. They get to know buildings, they get to know people, they get to know processes inside of that building. I think it's advantageous for us. It would be a shift. It would be something I don't think other districts do. But if we could, and I know there's very little likelihood that they're available because they probably already, some of them might already have it, be under contract someplace else. But if not, if we can get people in and get them acclimated to the buildings and to the environment that we provide, I think it's in our best interest of the people coming in and of our kids and our families and of our staffs that we currently have. So
Yeah, and that's
Just
what we're trying
throw
to
my
do.
2 out there.
The people that we've hired mid-year, with the exception of one experienced teacher who was able to come from Illinois, all of them are December grads. So we're trying to get them in and get them acclimated and hopefully be able to keep them in the buildings that we've placed them in for the remainder of this year, as well as giving them opportunities to explore other buildings that they might not have thought about. But then we're also looking at forward for the May graduates. We're starting to interview them now. We interviewed last week, and being proactive in getting them before anyone else does.
right.
Do we
Thank
have
you.
anything almost like some kind of a promo type of something that Tony can do or something along those lines so that it's out there for them to see even before they actually apply for our area?
Yeah, Tony and I work pretty closely on getting print ads, social media ads, and radio ads for our postings in general. And then when we post to our website, it's automatically required that it gets posted to the Teach Iowa website. So that's a state database for applicants to look at as well. And making sure that we're targeting some of the universities that have these highly specialized programs like family consumer science, art. Those are some of the much more challenging areas to find licensed teachers in. So that's part of what I've been doing, is trying to get there and find those people soon.
Yeah.
Unless anybody here wants to teach foods.
Good luck with the FCS.
So,
Any other question?
Well, I think without the encouragement to sub, even though I hope they all, as I look at the list, I know that I've been in some of these classes. And so, it's a little bittersweet, I think, to know that it's like the end of a generation. I don't know. So I think that they'll all be really missed, and I hope as every single person, just whether or not they were in a classroom or in the cafeteria or whatever, they made an impact on students. And I might retire my email that Miss Gedkin made me get. So, I think my husband will like that too. So maybe I will do that. But just a sincere thank you to every one of them.
yeah, and we've really put some thought into how we would backfill a lot of these positions so that we can just continue the legacy that many of these folks are leaving.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So all those in favor of approving the early retirees for fiscal year 23, please signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. So moving forward into next item on our agenda, the discussion and information. Item A, review administrative regulations, 505.2R1, communicable diseases chart. Item 2, 900.2R1, distribution of materials in the school's administrative regulations. Any question about either or regulation? Okay, thank you. Moving to item B, first reading on policies, 900.2, distribution of materials in the schools, and the suggestion is to delete that item. Any question about that?
I'm assuming we're deleting because it's in another area. It's covered in another area.
It's item 2 under A, it will be, yeah. Any other question? Okay, item C, second reading on policies, number 1, 601.7, foreign study, Number 2, 701.3, transfer of funds. And number 3, 704.5, capital assets. Any question?
Would any of this, since we are looking at this foreign exchange program, has that been coordinated, anything with what's in the language that we have here now?
Yes, we'll follow that.
Okay, if there's no question, remember, for item C, second reading, we still have one more chance to look into these 3 policies. And if you have any question, please connect with Daphne between now and next meeting. Thank you. So moving forward to item D, Tom, I see you're ready for financials.
Sure. So tonight we're showing the December financials, and I have the the deposit balances as of December 31st, and then some fund financial summaries as of December 31st, and revenues and expenditures. And also a published budget versus actual, compared to the actual through December. So January 9th, obviously today we approved the SBRC application for MSA for dropout prevention, so thank you very much. February 13th, we will have the audit report on the board agenda. I did get the final draft just today. It was completed, and so I will put together an audit committee meeting and then have that presented to the board on the 13th of February. We also may have to switch some items here because March 6th is really March 20th. We're meeting the third Monday of the month in March. Actually, and we're meeting April 20th because of Good Friday is the second Monday. We're going to have to change when we have the public hearing. So for our budget, and which we would schedule that for the next, meeting prior to that would be March 20th. So unless we have a special meeting, because obviously we have to have our budget done by April 15th, or at least approved and sent to the county auditor. So sometimes we don't know SSA, sometimes by April 10th or whatever. Maybe we won't know it by April or March 20th, but that's okay. We can still approve our budget, so we'll work with that, and I'll explain more of that as we get closer. And then we'll also talk about on February 27th then the timeline for adding the renewal of the revenue purpose statement onto the school board election agenda here that would be coming up in 2023. So I think that was the desire of the school board, so we will talk about that February 27th. So there, the second page there, you see our deposit balances as of December 31st. You'll notice that Fund 34, we did have our second closing for the revenue, sales tax revenue bonds. So that was deposited in December. And then, you see a debt service fund, but remember that's not property tax. That's just transferring money from Fund 33 to Fund 40 in order to pay that debt service on those revenue bonds when that comes due.
Sure, why there's a difference there. Probably should be more than the 27.
Oh, yeah. So it's, no, so it should be the 46 million there. That's not the 27 million. It's Thank you for pointing that out. That's my copy and paste. So, okay.
A lot of that was due to the 10 million, right?
So,
For the save.
yes, yeah, the increase in the deposits was the Fund 34. Okay, revenues and expenses as of December 31st, 2022 is the next page. So I have nothing to point out there, and you can compare that to December of 2021. I did throw in here on the next page expenses actual expenses to published. So we're about halfway through the fiscal year, not necessarily halfway through expenses because of, the majority of our expenses, teacher salary and benefits, they start getting paid in September, so really February is that halfway point for a majority of our salary and benefits. But I can tell you right now, we will amend our budget just because of the facilities acquisition and construction, because last April we didn't really have a lot of clear expectations of where our capital project expenditures were going to be, so maybe we didn't budget as much as we should have, so we will have to amend our budget, but that won't happen here until May. And then the final two slides are the general fund only. So the general fund revenues, I will point out that we did in December get our first quarter federal ESSER reimbursement. So we did get that, and we've just submitted our second quarter here this week. So hopefully the timeliness of that is a little bit better than the first quarter. And then, so the last page is the expenditure, so I have nothing to point out for those, but we're setting all right. So, okay.
Any question for Tom?
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Moving forward to announcement, meetings, and events. January 10, 2023, Riverbend Mobile Food Pantry between 4 and 5:30 p.m. at the Administrative Center. January 16th, 23, No School TQ Day. January 16th, 23, preschool registration 23-24 for 3 and 4 years old at Muscatine Early Learning Center. January 23rd, 23, school board work session at 6 p.m. at the Administrative Center. January 26, 23, 2-hour early dismissal. January 27, 23, no school teacher in service. January 27, 23, MHS Boosters Cake Auction. February 13, 23, School Board Community Conversation at 6 p.m. here at the City Hall at the lower level of this building. And February 13, 23, our regular board meeting at 7 p.m. here in the chamber. Anybody else would like to add any other announcement? Okay. Now, the next item is adjournment. So do we have a motion to adjourn, please?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, those of you who are in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Thank you.